call to order the January 9th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Smith for our ceremonial opening. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy New Year to all. It's a year of optimism. Let's face it, Oklahoma finally won a bowl game, and
Finally.
yeah, I know. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now at agenda item A3, adoption of the agenda. We have 3 suggested changes to our agenda. Number 1, we need to remove item C7 from the agenda. This is the bid award, automated refuse truck cab chassis and body. Staff discovered an error in the legal ad requirement. Staff will resubmit this ad and bring this to our January 30th council meeting. Number 2, agenda item E5 is the public hearing and resolution on the proposed amendment to the purchase and development agreement between Town of Cary and Memento Mori LLC. Staff requests that we continue this public hearing until January 30th council meeting. This item is related to the following Section 108 loan item for which we are awaiting information. The published notice for this item did provide for a possible continuance. Number 3, agenda item F1 is the acceptance of the Section 108 loan and loan terms from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and approval of the final loan terms to Memento. Staff requests that we move this item to the January 30th meeting because we have not yet received the decision on the 108 loan from HUD. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda and continue the public hearing and the Section 108 loan item to the January 30th council meeting?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next agenda item is Public Speaks Out, which is item B. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. If you would like to speak, please take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have up to 3 minutes for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic that is not a public hearing this evening. We have public hearings listed on the PowerPoint slide, and I would thank you in advance to holding your comments for public hearings for the public hearing. I'll enforce a 3-minute time limit to be fair to all our speakers. There's a timer located on the podium at the speaker's podium, and there's a green light for the first 2.5 minutes. And then when there's 30 seconds remaining, the light turns yellow. And then once your time is up, it turns to a flashing red. And at that time, I'll interrupt you and ask you to immediately conclude your comments. I thank all of our speakers in advance to adhering to our 3-minute time limit. And we also ask that groups have a spokesperson on behalf to reduce repetitive comments. There's a 1-hour time limit on Public Speaks Out, so we'll be keeping track of the time to be fair to all of our speakers. So at this time, I'll open up Public Speaks Out for those who would like to speak on any topic that is not a public hearing. And at this time, I would invite the first speaker forward. Anyone for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening. My name is Fillmore Bowen, and I'm here with John Trumpito, whose name I always mess up. I'm sorry. We're members of the Town of Cary Information Services Advisory Board. This last Monday, your ISAB, in its monthly meeting, discussed Open Data Day and what the Town of Cary should do to support the Triangle Open Data Day effort that's coming up. At its core, open data is about the free flow of information between the government and its citizens. Last year, Open Data Day started as a worldwide community gathering, with Cary as the only town in North Carolina participating. This year, Open Data Day has expanded to 4 continents with over 32 communities participating. The Triangle Open Day Today is scheduled for Saturday, February 22nd at the NCSU Centennial Campus. At our meeting on Monday, the ISAB voted unanimously to recommend to Council that the Town of Cary support the Triangle Open Day Today again this year. Last year, the Town of Cary and the Technology Service Department were instrumental in making the event a success. The ISAB commissioned John and I to communicate to the board our support to the council for Open Day Today. The board would like to see the same level of support this year as we had last year with some additional ideas. The mayor should again issue a proclamation in support of Open Day Today, and the town staff should be encouraged to attend this event. Last year, the town provided 4 data sets. This year, we would like to refresh and expand that listing. One particular data set that the board is interested in is the Greenway data. 3, the town should provide metadata for the data sets it includes. They could use a third party, such as Socrata, to help with this regard. In addition, the town should provide a catalog of the data that is available for this event. If the event has specific IT infrastructure needs, the town should attempt to assist. We have a very good IT organization here, and we believe that it can be helpful. Last year, the town provided Wi-Fi, which was instrumental in the event's success. The town could increase the visibility of its brand at this event as a technology town of North Carolina by sponsoring a specific part of the event, such as a coffee break or a lunch during the event. The ISAB looks forward to seeing Open Day Today to be a success again this year and for Cary to be seen as leading the way. The chairman of the ISAB, Jamie Dixon, has also sent council an email with this information as well as websites pertaining to Open Day Today. Thank you for your support of the ISAB and for your consideration of this event.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Ogle, and I live at 215 South Academy Street in downtown. Back in May of 2012, we petitioned the town to allow us to build 3 dwellings behind our house located at 215 South Academy Street. At that time, we were informed that this plan would not meet the conditions of the LDO for the downtown district. This plan was referred to staff for study and consideration. Since that time, it has been discussed numerous times by staff and the P&Z committee. If I'm reading past minutes correctly and the agenda for tonight's council meeting, it appears the proposed amendment would allow construction of new detached residential structures as a special use for land in the HDMX subdistrict of the town center that is also within the downtown historic district. I would ask that council approve this amendment so that we can move forward with construction behind our home located at 215 South Academy Street. We believe this will help accomplish the vision of the town to bring in more residents to support all of the wonderful amenities that they are so generously providing for our downtown district. I know upon completion of this vision of mine that you will be proud of what you see and will be as excited as I am about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm Ron Laudholtz. I own Stonehaven Jewelry Gallery at 307 South Academy Street. And I believe it was back in May, we put forth, asked if there was any way we could build a residence on the back of our lot. And you'll have to forgive me, I don't know all the proper jargon and such for this. Actually, when I read things last night, I had to call somebody and find out what a flag lot meant. So I thought, do I have to put a flag on it or what? But anyway, about 15 years ago, my wife and I had a dream of having a business here in Cary. That dream has been realized. From there, it went to owning property and moving that business here to the downtown area. We are so thankful that that's been able to happen with the help and the things that the city has done. We're so proud of our location in the historic home there. The sort of last part of our dream is to be able to actually live right there where I can walk out the front door and into the back door of work and raise our family and basically live, eat, play, work, everything right here in beautiful downtown Cary. And so what I'm here to do is first just thank you for all you've already done in considering this request and ask that you move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening. My name is Scott Corbin. I live at 111 West Park Street in downtown Cary, and I have a business at 209 South Academy Street, also in downtown Cary. I'd just like to take a moment to thank specifically the staff of the town for the efforts that went into analyzing what was the best way to structure the changes to allow for the types of uses in the historic district. It's very important, we have found, that you carefully balance the growth with the needs of our community. And I'm so delighted to see the way it was structured. It took a lot of creativity. I want to especially thank Bob Benfield for his intuition and his foresight and in his ability to communicate well with both the staff and the council. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out?
Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Fred Thrower and I live in Highcroft Village and I am the pastor at Cornerstone Presbyterian Church on High House. I come to ask you to vote yes for the rezoning of our property from R40 to office and institution with a limited use for religious use only. And any accessory daycare or school to be limited to 40 students. Back when we purchased this property in 2001, we purchased it thinking we would put a church there. And that has always been the intention, to have a church there, and we built the church. But in 2003, the land development ordinance was adopted, and that does not allow for religious assembly by right, which means that we no longer, we came in, we thought we would have an opportunity to put in, we have 13 and a half acres and we put in 6,000 square feet, thinking that we would have more opportunities to add to that. But then, as I said, the land development ordinance changed or was adopted, and now we don't have right to do that. We have to come in with a special use permit. It was our expectation that we would continue to be able to build, and this change is something that we believe needs to happen to allow us to have that right. We went before the Planning and Zoning Board back in December, and two of the members of that board said, well, this should have happened 10 years ago, that we were changed. So we're not asking to have anything different. We would just like to be back where we were when we began, when we came in here We did not change our plans. It's just that some of the laws changed, and we understand that has to happen, and we appreciate so much what you all do. But we would like to be able to build and to move forward, and we find the only way to do that is for rezoning. We do seek to be very good neighbors with the town and with our neighbors. We have worked with them. We had 8 people sign a petition to stop, and 2 people took their names off of that petition. And we're very grateful for that. But we look forward to being able to move forward on this, that we may be rezoned. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Anyone at all? I see no one. We'll close Public Speaks Out. We now move to the consent agenda, but before we do, Councilmember Smith has to be recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think it's important for those of you watching and maybe from the audience, if you notice kind of a change in the agenda. We got a request from a citizen a while back suggesting that Public Speaks Out be moved up, primarily because sometimes people, for a variety of reasons, wanted to talk about things on the consent agenda. And they felt like having that we've approved the consent agenda, it was like after the fact. And so we, as a council, talked about that, and with the new year have decided to move it up. And that's why you see it earlier in the process. I think that's just a good insight that we do listen to the community and we do listen to the citizens. I just wanted that to be recognized.
Thank you. That's a good point, and I really think it's a better process. So we're now at the consent agenda, since we've had Public Speaks Out. This is item C on your agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, we're going to take a moment to read the consent agenda items. As a reminder, we removed item C7, the bid award automated refuse truck, cab, chassis, and body from the agenda. And remember that one vote approves all items on the consent agenda. On the consent agenda are minutes, bicycle and pedestrian bond funding allocations, ratification of resolutions for Cary Swim Club, Glencroft Townhomes, Green Hope Crossing, Parktown Commons Phase 2C, a resolution approving 2012 local water supply plan, rezoning 13 RZ 22, which is on 956 West Chatham Street, comprehensive plan consistency statement for that rezoning, 13 RZ 22, rezoning 13 REZ 17, the Meacham property at Cary Park, and the comprehensive plan consistency statement for that rezoning, 13 REZ 17. Would any council members like any item pulled from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to item D1, presentation of a check from Friends of the Hemlock Bluffs to assist with the updating the exhibits at Stevens Nature Center. And Mr. Dwayne Jones of our staff will introduce this item. Mr. Jones.
Good evening, Council. If I could ask Mr. Smith to join us at the podium for this presentation. The Friends of Hemlock Bluffs have been a long-standing partner with the town for many years, bringing visibility and significant grant funding to Hemlock Bluffs Nature Preserve. For instance, the Friends helped secure grant funding for over $40,000 from REI to complete renovations on the boardwalk at the base of the bluffs. Most recently, the Friends donated an iPad to the Nature Center for instructional purposes to provide resources that connect technology and nature. The Friends are faithful advocates for the preserve, the Nature Center, and environmental programs and events at Hemlock Bluffs, and they are here tonight to further that assistance with the town, helping the town meet the facility goals. Here with us tonight are our Nature Center Supervisor, Laura White, Friends of Hemlock Bluffs board members, Joanna Wainwright, the treasurer, Jim Mason, our current president, Christina Hester, and Tully Johnson, who's the past president, who will make the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Dwayne. Citizens care and use Hemlock Bluffs, and I am one of those citizens who loves Hemlock Bluffs, and I've been involved as a volunteer since the first day that the Nature Center opened. I represent many citizens who are members of Friends of Hemlock Bluffs, and some of those who are here with us tonight, and that we generously give of our time, talents, and money to support the Nature Preserve and the Nature Center. As Dwayne mentioned, for example, the Friends of Hemlock Bluffs for the past 18 years have donated approximately $34,000 for its projects, supplies, resources to Hemlock Bluffs Nature Preserve, as well as the grants that we have gotten from REI. We are proud to provide funding to the town to help spearhead the exhibit renovations in the Nature Center in the amount of $9,200, which represents 79% of the project. And we are grateful that the town is willing to help us with the other 21%. The Friends of Hemlock Bluffs work hard to raise these funds for exactly these purposes. The shared cost of this project makes us partners working together for a common goal: bettering the Stevens Nature Center, improving Hemlock Bluffs, and ultimately educating Cary citizens to preserve and protect the environment and to be good stewards of natural resources. And just let me take a brief moment and invite the town council and the mayor and anyone here tonight to visit Stevens Nature Center to look at before and then come after the renovations are done inside the Nature Center. And also, if you have time, take a walk on many of our many trails. And we welcome any of you to become friends, a member of the Friends of Hemlock Bluffs also while you're there, because we see and we feel that Hemlock Bluffs Nature Preserve is not only a unique, cherished resource, but the star of Cary Parks and Recreation and of this town of Cary. Thank you for allowing us to have this time, and Jack? Big check. Unfortunately, you can't take it home.
Thank you on behalf of the mayor and the entire council. Thank you for this generous donation. And thank you for all you do. Tully, you remember the early days, and I probably shouldn't bring this up, but this was actually a controversy in the 80s. Should we be investing in Hemlock Bluffs? And as a point of trivia for all of you, back in the 80s, in my first campaign, in my first forum, the very first question I ever received was, do you support Hemlock Bluffs and the town investing in it? And I'm proud that I did, and I think we should all be proud of the efforts of the Friends, and this is one of our jewels. Thank you again for this contribution. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight and for all you do. And for those who haven't visited Hemlock Bluffs, like Ms. Johnson said, it is truly a unique and special place. You don't know it until you go. So you need to go and check it out, and it's an incredible place. Thank you for all you do. We're now at public hearings on the agenda. The same rules we had for Public Speaks Out apply to public hearings, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes to make their comments. The first two public hearings are on the Pollard Harris property. Item E1 is the public hearing for the annexation petition 13A22, and item E2 is the public hearing for the associated rezoning 13RZ20. Ms. Bierman of our staff will present these requests. We're going to hear from the applicant, and then we're going to open the public hearing on the annexation and the rezoning. Council will not take action on this tonight. Instead, we're going to refer it to our Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Bierman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing on the request to annex and apply the initial Town of Cary zoning to about 19.39 acres. It's located on Stevens Road. This is a vicinity map. You can see the property is on the east side of Stevens Road. It's about 400 feet west of the intersection with Smith Road. This is just a closer aerial view of the property. This is the annexation map. On the left side of this dotted line is Apex, the Apex ETJ, so that is areas all in Apex's jurisdiction. And then this is Cary's planning jurisdictional boundary. The existing zoning of the property is R30 in Wake County. The proposed zoning is R8, conditional use. There's one proposed zoning condition that would limit residential development to 2.75 dwelling units per acre, and single-family detached homes is the unit type that is allowed in this district. According to the Cary land use plan, the plan designation is low-density residential, which allows 1 to 3 units per acre. There is a stream buffer on the property shown on Cary's GIS maps. This feature will be, final determination will be made at the time of the subdivision or site plan approval. There are no facilities shown on the Cary Parks and Greenways plan in the vicinity. Stevenson Road is designated as a minor thoroughfare. There are no transit facilities along the frontage of the property. There are future C-Tran routes shown on 1010 Road and Kildare Farm Road near the site. This is a notification map. The properties in yellow were those that were notified in writing of the public hearing. We did not receive a protest petition. I did receive several calls from neighboring property owners just asking for information. There were no specific concerns with the requests that were expressed. That concludes staff comments. I would now call on the applicant for further discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm J.W. Sharon with IDS in Cary. This project, we met with the adjacent neighbors on August of this year. We had about 7 attendees. They were from the Windermere community that sits to the southeast of the site. You can see there's a street there called Allenhurst Place. It cul-de-sacs there at the end. They had a number of questions about was there going to be connectivity, drainage, buffering, typical informational items. But with that meeting, there was no real concern about this request. It is the intent of the developer to provide for single-family homes here and limit it to 2.75 units per acre. Overall, seeing that as an LDR site, the predominant uses in that area along Stevenson Road are low density. There's another subdivision on Apex's side, this being built for single-family 2 on the western side of Stevenson, a little further down. We feel that it'll be a nice piece to provide for another residential subdivision in that area. The only other non-single family property is to the east is apartments, and they're self-contained, and their access points are off of Kildare Farm Road. There'll be adequate buffering and separation of uses there. Quite frankly, once this project is built, due to stream buffers and buffers that already exist, it's basically non-visible off-site other than from the street frontage. So we feel this will be a great fit for the area, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Ms. Bierman has concluded her comments, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Okay, at this time I'll open up the public hearing for this annexation and rezoning and invite the first speaker forward. Anyone to speak on this public hearing? I see no one. We'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for comments or questions. Seeing none, we'll forward this to our Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation, and it will come back to council at a future date.
Yes.
Thanks. We now move to item E3. It's a public hearing for 13 CPA 05 Weston Plan Development Amendment. This public hearing is only for the request to change the use of the land to allow medium-density residential to the office and industrial use already allowed. The next public hearing is the rezoning and is the appropriate time for people to make comments about the specific potential types of development that are proposed to be allowed on the land. Ms. Chandler of our staff will present the comprehensive plan amendment request. We're going to hear from the applicant, and then we're going to open the public hearing. Council will not take action on these items tonight. We'll refer it to our Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is a comprehensive plan amendment request for about 25 acres located in the Weston Planned Development District. The subject property is located on the south side of Weston Parkway between Chapel Hill Road and Sheldon Drive. Notification of this plan amendment request was sent to properties shown in yellow on this map. This slide shows stream buffers and floodways within and around the subject property. Please note that this site is impacted by stream buffers. The slide shows parks and greenways in the vicinity. There is a proposed greenway about half a mile away from the site. Both Weston Parkway and Chapel Hill Road are existing major thoroughfares. And a future C-Tran route is planned around this property. The current land use designation of the subject property is office industrial. The applicant proposes to change the land use designation to office industrial or medium density residential. Medium density residential is defined as single family detached or attached housing between 3 and 8 units per acre. This slide shows the master plan from the Weston PDD document. Over the past decade, several properties in this corridor have flipped from pure office park to some residential, and this is something that staff will keep in mind and analyze as we move through this process. Following the public hearing, Council may forward this comprehensive plan amendment request to the Planning and Zoning Board. And at this time, staff comments are complete, and the applicant is invited to provide any comments.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Bob Zumwalt with McAdams. I'm director of our planning and design group. As I mentioned, there's a companion zoning case to this, and so my comments will just kind of cover the justification for both. I won't need to get back up again for that. Here tonight representing MI Homes and Highwoods Properties in the effort to amend this portion of the Weston PUD, as Meredith mentioned, for 100 townhomes, so it would take it from office institutional to residential. Weston is a 929-acre master plan community that combines predominantly non-residential land uses and open space. The purpose of the amendment is to request the conversion of this 25 acres to residential. The development of this tract as medium density will continue the transition that Meredith mentioned from a predominantly traditional suburban office development to something that is a little more of a mixed-use sustainable environment with housing incorporated in and amongst the office pods. Since the adoption of the land use plan in Cary in '96, planning principles have continued to evolve to support a more integrated mix of uses. Current planning practices strive for more sustainability in communities with less dependence on the automobile. This providing a mix of housing styles and types in close proximity to this large job and employment center will help to minimize the amount of trips that are going to be in and around the roads in this area. And this is the conversion of this piece will continue to foster that sort of mixed-use feel of keeping people living close to where the jobs are. Since its inception in '98, the density of the office at Weston has increased far above what was originally envisioned by Highwoods. The original draft of the PDD included no residential at all. Over time, there's been a number of master plan revisions designed to respond to the demand for housing in and around this major employment center. This amendment would provide additional reasonably priced housing on a site which is encumbered by some difficult environmental features such as streams and basically complete lack of visibility from Weston Parkway altogether. These conditions make the site all but impossible to develop for office or industrial, but at the same time, it creates an opportunity for a secluded little residential enclave of about 100 townhomes in walking distance to jobs and Park West and restaurants, shopping, things like that. Due to the significant natural buffers around the site, conversion from office to residential is not going to detract from the appearance from Weston Parkway. You won't see any of the residences there. It won't affect the integrity of the PUD. In fact, the dense surroundings allow for the much-needed housing while providing buffering from all the adjoining industrial uses that are surrounding the property. There's substantial stream buffers to the properties surrounding. As I mentioned, the density of office in Weston has increased greatly in conjunction with the demand by corporations to locate in Weston. Recent developments have also incorporated the use of structured parking to further increase the density, and this trend is likely to continue as land prices continue to escalate in the area. Highwoods estimates that Weston's capable of accommodating 1.2 million square feet of office space in addition to what's out there today. At the current pace, it would take, if they continue to develop at the current pace, take about another 20 years to fully build out the Weston PUD, the remaining land that's available. At full build-out, Weston could contain over 2 million square feet of office space and be home to 10,000 employees and their families, potentially. Without adequate housing opportunities close by, the transportation network will continue to have to carry people in from outlying neighborhoods in Cary and Morrisville. We believe the proposal before you tonight will further transition Weston into a more sustainable PDD, which provides housing opportunities and varying prices close to Cary's largest employment center. Finally, you'll hear about this in a few minutes, but we were made aware yesterday that there was a protest petition filed on behalf of one of the adjoining properties owned by a LLC. At this point, we're not sure what the concerns are. The owner wasn't at the neighborhood meeting, and they haven't reached out to us at all. So we're in the process of reaching out to them, and we will be doing that to figure out what their concerns are, see if we can address them as we move forward. So thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. This time, I'll open up the public hearing for this comprehensive plan amendment, and I would invite the first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? I see no one. We'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. Ms. Robbins?
I have a question. Maybe staff can answer it, but if not, maybe the applicant. The applicant representative commented that the office park could have 1.2 million additional square feet of office and industrial. Is he saying that for all of the vacant land, or is he saying all the vacant land minus this parcel here?
I'll need the applicant to come back and answer that.
And I'd like to know how many square feet of office we have presently under construction or built, or maybe even just entitled in Weston.
Can we get the applicant to come back and answer a couple of questions?
Yeah. I just didn't understand the numbers, how it.
Sure. Bob Zumwalt again from McAdams. The figures came from Highwoods, and my understanding was that if this parcel is taken out, which a lot of the sketches they've done for office on this would estimate about a 70 to 80,000 square feet of office could fit on this site if it were not so topographically challenged. But my understanding is that that would be, once we remove this parcel, there's still approximately 1.2 million square feet that could develop on what they have inventoried left.
Okay, so that would suggest that right now we have about 800,000 square feet of office in Highwoods, in the Weston PUD?
I believe that's right. Now, that's probably just what's on the ground today. There's other things that's planned or in the process that would be over and above that for an ultimate build-out of, what did I say, 2 million, somewhere 2 million.
Okay, I think before this comes back the next time, maybe staff could get those numbers kind of pinned down for us. We can understand what's happening out there.
Certainly, we can do that.
And before you go away, I even have a question.
Yeah.
So topographically challenged. So if you were forced to put office on there, would that mean significant grading?
Yeah.
What would that mean?
Well, what it means is
encroachment into buffers, all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, it probably means there's buffers on either side. It drops down, I'm guessing, but it drops down probably 50 feet from the top of the hill down on either side to the stream buffers. And to put an office building in there with a lot of parking, you basically have to chop the top of the hill off, retaining walls up the sides, and it just is so ineffective. The costs are astronomical. And the thought here was the builder we have wants to put daylight basement units all the way around the perimeter so that they take advantage of that and walk out basements out into the undisturbed buffer. So, yeah.
Thank you. Other questions?
No questions on the plan amendment. I think medium density could be an acceptable use. I think the rezoning is where the, devil's in the details, so.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We'll forward this on to the Planning and Zoning Board, and we'll see it at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to item E4. It's a public hearing for 13 RZ 26, the Weston Plan Development Amendment. Ms. Bierman of our staff will present this request. We're going to hear from the applicant, then open the public hearing. And once again, the council will not take action on this tonight. Instead, we're going to forward it to the Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Bierman.
Thank you. Again, this is the public hearing for the rezoning portion of this item associated with the comprehensive plan amendment you just heard, so I won't repeat the details that Meredith just presented. This, again, just shows the site. The actual zoning district remains the same. It's still Plan Development District Major. The only change, well, and this is the overall plan where you can see the location again. Currently, there are a variety of commercial, institutional, and other land uses allowed on this particular tract, and I believe in your staff report we have all of those specific uses listed. The only change that's being proposed with this request is to add up to 100 townhomes to this current list of uses that would be permitted on the site. There is not a preliminary development plan with this, since it's Planned Development District. The only change that's being requested is literally to add a line to the permitted uses to allow townhomes, so that when a site plan would be submitted, then it would just be subject to all the standards that are present in the Planned Development District document and the remainder of the Land Development Ordinance.
Okay.
We did have several calls regarding this item. Most of them were just requesting information and general concerns expressed regarding and questions regarding traffic, existing traffic patterns and traffic along 54 in that area and also along Weston Parkway. And there was one valid protest petition submitted. This protest petition appears to be valid based on the area used. There may be some other issues related to it that may arise that would be resolved prior to any action on the rezoning request. So that concludes staff comments, so I would ask for the applicant to return for further comments.
Does the applicant have additional comments?
Thanks again, Bob Zumwalt with McAdams. Like I said, my first presentation kind of covers everything, but just for the record, just to mention, we found out about the zoning petition yesterday, so we are continuing to try to get a hold of them to figure out what the issues are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This time, we'll open up the public hearing for this rezoning, and we would invite the first speaker forward at this time. Anyone to speak at this rezoning public hearing? See no one, we'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. Mr. Franz.
Thank you. Ms. Bierman, I need clarification. The language earlier said that this rezoning would add up to 100 townhomes to the allowable use.
Yes.
It was 25-acre tract, and MDR allows 3 to 8 units an acre. So if they developed that at 8, they could see 200 townhomes. What is there that limits it to 100 townhomes?
The specific, that's the specific limitation with the request in the document. So there would actually be a line in the Planned Development District document under the list of permitted uses that specifies up to 100 townhomes on this tract.
Okay. So they would be limited to no more than 100?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
Other questions, comments?
Just make a quick comment. You know, Looking at this site and hearing the applicant talking about, you know, the walkability of the site and being close to employment, this is extremely close. This site is extremely close as a bird flies to the Park West Shopping Center. But there doesn't look like there's a potential route for pedestrians to come out and get to that shopping center easily. And I think it's probably an impossibility based on the way the adjacent properties are already developed to the south. But if there was a way to get some kind of pedestrian movement that would allow people to come out and get over to the Park West Shopping Center with ease, that would be very, very appealing, I think, for this council to see, because otherwise they're going to have to go up north to Weston Parkway, down Weston Parkway, which I'm not even sure what kind of pedestrian route there is along there, and then down Chapel Hill Road. So I think that'll also be of interest to us as, you know, staff comes back on this one, is what are the pedestrian movements around here, and how would these people who are living in this secluded enclave actually walk to different places?
And let me follow up on that. South of there is Morrisville, right?
That's correct.
And so we would have limited what we can entertain from them. But that's a good topic to bring up with the Morrisville Joint Committee.
Yeah, I would think so.
To see if they can help us come up
Work
with a
with us.
solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because when you look up the Google map for this site, there is a stub from the marquee, which is the apartments, right, that basically dead ends into this property, which would provide that
would be great.
walkthrough. So I would hope that there's some opportunity for the applicant to work with these folks and not add a whole new route,
Yeah.
and to use that stub within the marquee. Of course, the marquee, I believe, is in Morrisville, so.
Correct, and that's where I think,
So
Joint
hopefully
effort.
there's something that could be done there.
yeah.
That could be looked into.
Okay,
through the
that's great,
process.
thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll forward this, we had the public hearing on this, didn't we?
That's what we,
Sorry. We'll forward this to the Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation, and we'll see this at a later date. Thank you, Ms. Spearman. Item E5 is the one we continued. It's the public hearing and resolution, proposed amendment, purchase of development between Town of Cary and Memento Mori. At the beginning of our council meeting, we moved this to the January 30th. Also, the first item F1 in discussion was the acceptance of that loan and loan terms from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and approval of the final loan terms to Memento. And at the beginning of the meeting, we moved that to the January 30th council meeting. So that takes us to the second discussion item, which is rezoning 13 REZ 15, the Cornerstone Presbyterian Church. Ms. Bierman of our staff will present this request. We're going to hear from the Planning and Zoning Board representative. Council will take action or may take action on this item tonight. There's a valid protest petition on this request, which requires 6 affirmative council votes to approve the request. A simple majority vote is required to deny the request. Ms. Bierman.
This is the request to rezone about 13.49 acres at 2220 High House Road. This is the vicinity map. You can see the property in the relation to High House Road. The railroad is located to the east, and the Berkeley subdivision is located to the west and north. This is a closer view of the site. You can see the existing church and parking lot on the facility, and the cul-de-sac that connects to Citrus Place, which provides access through the adjacent subdivision. The existing zoning on the site is R40. Religious assembly was allowed in R40 by right at the time that the existing site plan for the church was approved in 2003. A special use permit is now required in the R40 district, where the property is less than 20 acres. The proposed zoning is office and institutional conditional use. The proposed zoning conditions would limit the use to religious assembly and accessory uses, and in the O&I base district, that would be allowed by right. So the special use permit would no longer be required. And also, there's a condition that any future accessory use for school or daycare would be limited to 40 students. The land use plan designation for the site is LDR, low density residential. There is one stream buffer shown on the site according to our GIS maps. Field determination of this would be made at the time of site plan approval. This shows the notification map. The properties in yellow were sent notices of the public hearing. There was a protest petition, or several protest petitions filed. It is a valid protest. One protest petition was withdrawn. You can see that one in pink. The general concerns that were expressed through the protest petition at the public hearing, and also these were concerns that were expressed at a neighborhood meeting that was held, that was attended by myself and the mayor and council members Adcock and Urha. General concerns expressed related to the fact that the church expansion would no longer require a special use permit, that it would be allowed by right. There are also concerns related to stormwater runoff, the traffic impact, buffers adjacent to the properties, particularly on the west side, the impact of the parking lot and traffic on adjacent properties, and effects on residential property value. The Planning and Zoning Board considered the request and recommended approval by a vote of 7-1, so I'll now call on Mr. Swanstrom to present the Planning and Zoning Board recommendation.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
As you've been told, we had a discussion on this item and voted 7-1 to recommend approval. The one dissenting vote was primarily looking for some additional conditions from the applicant on buffering for the properties to the west. However, we had other members of our board that observed that we effectively changed the rules on this applicant after the fact. They purchased the property and developed it as a church with a plan for expansion, and then we passed a land development ordinance that changed their capability to restrict it, and so there's a fundamental issue of fairness here. We also observed that one of the primary concerns that neighbors had was stormwater runoff. And as you know, we've subsequent in our land development ordinance put very stringent requirements on new development regarding stormwater runoff. So things that may have happened when this property was originally developed are hopefully much less likely to happen now because of our ordinance. And we also observed that the special use permit for each future development appeared to be to us to be an onerous requirement on the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Swanstrom? Okay, thank you, Mr. Swanstrom. Hang tight. We might ask questions in a little bit. Ms. Spearman?
Okay. I have no further comments.
Okay. Open it up to council members for questions, comments, or a motion.
I'll make a quick comment. I think people watching this and looking at this case might say that by approving this, the council is relaxing the standard that we have of trying to protect adjacent neighborhoods. But I think that really the important element here is that the church purchased its property with an understanding of what they'd be able to do with that land, and our ordinances changed on them. And that by allowing them to change to this zoning and basically, skirt the special use process, we are enabling them to achieve what they expected to do with the land before we made our ordinance change, and then we're not lowering our standards for how we're protecting neighborhoods. Someone who lives in a neighborhood and has R40 land adjacent to them, if someone were to come in with a new church property, we'd be looking at, the buffers and everything else, and looking to try to make sure that that church with its new project was meeting every single concern that's been addressed. But what we have here is an existing use that really feels like it got caught in the middle. And I think that really is a special condition.
Okay. Other comments?
Go ahead.
I was going to make a motion. You got it.
Well, just have a quick comment that I think one of the other things that I've noticed about this council is our careful consideration for property owners not to downzone them, right? And these property owners through all intents and purposes, had a certain expectation associated with this property, and nothing is changing based on this new zoning. We changed, not them.
Right.
And I think that they had a set of expectations for that property. I think, from my perspective, I think we need to validate those expectations.
Mr. Ura, you had a comment.
Yeah, no, actually, I think it's a pretty straightforward rezoning with two very clear conditions. As we met with the parties involved, other items seem to come up, and a little more depth was brought into the issue, I think. But frankly, I probably would have preferred to see this as a special use process than a rezoning. Because I think maybe the special use process would have eliminated some of the issues of mistrust that kind of arose along the way. I mean, we've had comments that perhaps, maybe the church is trying to get away with something here, or the town has something up its sleeve wanting this rezoned, and I think all of that is totally untrue. But I can see the perception that maybe came with that, and a special use process probably is there for a good reason in these cases, and may have helped ease that a little bit. But just because I think that a special use process may have been better than a rezoning is no reason for me to vote against the rezoning that's in front of us, because I think it's a good rezoning. I would like to have seen a condition, as Mr. Swanstrom mentioned, of a large buffer on the western side. I think if the applicant offered that, that would have been a little show of good faith to the neighbors without really doing any real harm to their project, from what I can see. But they didn't do that. We can't force them to do that. What's there with the rezoning, I think, is adequate, meets town requirements. So just because I'd like to see another condition added, is no reason for me to vote against the rezoning either. I just disturbed that there is so much mistrust going on here with some of the residents. But I think the rezoning as it is before us is acceptable and offers satisfactory protection to those around.
Mr. Franks?
Make a motion to approve 13-REZ15.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
I was just going to say, speaking to what Mr. Ura said about concerns and trust and some misunderstandings about this, I had heard expressed at the meeting that we attended at the church that if the church sold the land, then other things other than a church could be there. And I wanted Ms. Bierman to just state for the record whether that's possible or not.
That would not be possible without going through another rezoning process. The conditions specifically limit the use to only church and the accessory uses that would go
And
with
that travels with the land, not just who happens to own it right now.
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's really important, both to the church as well as to the adjacent property owners, and I certainly support the motion. Thank you, Mr. France.
Other comments?
To me, I would agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Swanstrom, the P&Z board, and other comments that were made here. To me, it's an issue of fairness. They bought the land with certain expectations and a vision, and then the rules were changed on them. And I just think this gets them back to what they used to be. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay. Other comments? We have a motion in place. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Bierman. We now move to the comprehensive plan consistency statement. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan consistency statement for REZ 13, REZ 15.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to Land Development Ordinance Amendments, Round 27. Ms. Bierman of our staff will introduce this request. We're going to hear from our Planning and Zoning Board, and Council may take action tonight. I thought a good way to do this might be to take all the items we agree on and go ahead and make a motion on that, kind of like a consent agenda. So I would ask Council at this time to let me know of items they would like to discuss, and then we'll make a motion to approve the remainder.
I would like us to discuss 27A.
27A,
And I may like to make a comment on 27B. Depends on the
27.
staff report.
27B. Any others? Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve 27C, D, F, and G.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, Lord. Motion carries unanimously.
Do we need to approve the consistency statement for those?
Let's
Before we
see
go
what
to
we
the
do
others?
with 27A and B, and then we'll come back and do the consistency statement for all that we've approved.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over now. If you have a presentation, if not, I'll turn it over to council members.
I can certainly, if you would like me to give a brief presentation on items A and B, I would be glad to do that. Or,
I'm getting a nod, yes.
okay. Okay, item A is the downtown housing options. The existing LDO requirements provide that no new detached residential dwellings are permitted in the HMXD subdistrict of the town center. Under the proposed requirements, new detached dwellings could be allowed in HMXD if they were within the downtown historic district as well. Approval of a special use permit would be required, and also if there was historic property or building designated as a landmark, then a certificate of appropriateness from Wake County Historic Preservation Commission would be required. The proposed ordinance would add detached multifamily as a new use in the permitted use table, and this would allow 3 or more dwellings in common or condominium type ownership on a single lot. It would also expand the circumstances under which flag lots can be created, which are lots with a small stem for access, so that you don't have to meet all of your road frontage requirements at the actual right-of-way. So this would allow more flexibility in creation of those lots to enable more flexibility with the subdivision. And this is a situation where you could have a lot created behind an existing structure without having to have twice the road frontage that would be required now. This is a map that shows the boundary of the historic district in the pink line. The parcels that are in the grayish brownish color are those that are in the HMXD district also. So those are the properties that would be affected. At the Planning and Zoning Board work session, there were some comments related to this. There were 2 different options that were set forth, one being to basically recommend approval of both options or both aspects of the development related to the up to 3 units in common ownership on a single lot, and the second component related to the creation of a flag lot. There was a second, a second option recommended or discussed by the P&Z board at their work session would allow only the creation of the flag lot. Excuse me, let me, not sure what happened there. In any event, the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board at their meeting was to approve both components as has been presented, including both the flag lots and the creation of the individual, up to 3 individual buildings on a single lot.
And that was a unanimous recommendation?
That was not unanimous. That aspect of the amendment received a 7-to-1 vote.
Would council like to hear from Mr. Swanstrom? Okay.
Oops. I don't know what's happening here.
Sorry. Thank you. I was going to ask for that. I appreciate you breaking it up, because in our vote, we had no problems with item B. And I think we had pretty much unanimous agreement on item B. Item A, we had one member that felt that what you have identified on the screen as option 2 would be appropriate because it would accomplish the same objective and avoid potential unforeseen consequences. There was also a discussion of concern about protection of historical buildings in the area. That was a little bit less specific, but there was a concern that by doing this, we may in fact impact some of the historical value of the area.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Swanstrom. Councilmember, do you have anything else for A?
Actually, if you would like for me to, did you want to discuss that item before moving on to item B?
Yeah, I would like to finish with item A, and then we'll move on to B. Questions, comments for item A?
Well, I'll start if everyone's looking at me, I think, because I don't think anybody's surprised, because I have mentioned in previous meetings that I'm opposed to this amendment change. Because I have mentioned it before, I'll be brief this evening. I guess we'll start with the fact that I think a special use process is infinitely better than allowing it by right, as it was originally proposed. So I think that's a good thing should this move forward, because it does give us the opportunity to say no to every individual request that comes forward. And if that option is available to us, what harm is it then, I guess is the question that could be asked. I just believe that it's, to me, seems like a rather contrived attempt at satisfying some very well-intentioned requests by our residents. It's contrived because it's not consistent with the philosophy of the MHXD subdistrict, which does not allow new detached residential dwellings. So a process had to be devised or contrived to kind of get around this. And that allows these dwellings, as Mrs. Bierman indicated, in the historic district only. But in trying to do this, it's willfully increasing the number of non-contributing structures in the historic district, and in my opinion, can threaten the integrity of the district as a whole. We've avoided conflict with one philosophy by trying to do this, but I think we've run smack into another one in the process. It's just counterintuitive to me that we're being more flexible in a National Register historic district than we are in the rest of downtown. Again, with a special use process, we can look at each one of these individually, but I'm going to find it very hard for me to ever think that I'm going to say yes. I don't want to prejudge anything ahead of a hearing, but it'd be very hard for me to think that I was going to say yes to this, so I feel unfair to everyone if I went along and approved the process, which is a cumbersome one for any applicant to go through, and then wind up saying no at the end of the road. So to be fair, I just don't see us starting the process. With all due respects to the applicants themselves, who are not only well-meaning, well-intentioned, but the folks you heard from before at the Public Speaks Out are also have been longtime friends of historic preservation here in Cary. So it makes it even more difficult. But I just think doing this is not necessarily a good thing for the town and is, in my opinion, a bad idea.
Okay. Other comments?
I really can't disagree with anything you said, Mr. Urha. I look at it, I guess, a little bit differently, that I would like the council to have the opportunity to possibly judge each one on its merits, and there are probably going to be some that I too would say no to, and then maybe some that I think, yeah, this could be a good idea, or this could work, and maybe I could support that. I would agree that it's kind of goes against what the HMXD district is all about. It's a high-intensity district, but even though it doesn't allow single-family homes, the more homes you put on a lot, to me, that increases the density, so it kind of gets us closer to it. It's not my property, it's the property owner's property, and I think they maybe should have the right to at least have the opportunity to come and present a proposal to us for an up or down vote. And so I would support the special use process, and to give them that opportunity.
And I'm glad you said yours that way, because I was thinking a lot the same way. And so I want to go back to Mr. Yarhaw's comments. I agree with almost everything you said, except for one thing you said: you can't see yourself ever voting for it. And I was saying to myself, as you were saying that, I really don't know if I could ever see. And so therefore, I would like the opportunity to see, and that's what the special use is for. And so therefore, I can support it. But other than that, I agree with everything you said. It's going to be very difficult for me to vote against it. So good points.
Well, I'll start from the bottom up. Mr. Urha always makes a strong case for everything that he talks about, and it is difficult to disagree with him. But starting with that last argument and working up, we may, as individuals, have difficulty seeing ourselves vote for this, but we won't always be the ones sitting at this table. We have to think about future councils and setting a process in place for other individuals besides ourselves. So that's one thing I take into account. The other is that while I may not know the absolute correct definition of contributing structures, Mr. Urha said we're increasing the number of non-contributing structures. I actually think that structures such as this could contribute to a successful downtown. When I think about different housing options and more residents downtown, more feet on the street for what we're trying to achieve, I think that taken, with the protections that are in this proposed ordinance through the quasi-judicial hearing, the special use process, I think we have the opportunity to judge each one on its merits. And for all those reasons, I'm going to support this ordinance change.
Well, I'll just say, as I was considering this, one thing I thought about was a recent visit, or actually it's a couple years ago now, to Charleston, where I stayed in a contributing structure that someone had added right behind his and her house. That was a historic home in Charleston, right off the Battery. And it blended really nicely. It did contribute to the site. It really did enhance the site. So having had that experience, it alleviated a little bit of my concern about this. I took a different view from you, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, the special use was a higher bar to have to cross than the typical rezoning process. I felt like by having that, it really required the applicant to step up his game and really prove that it would not degrade the community and that it would be an enhancement to the area. So as far as this is concerned, I'd actually feel safer with a special use process that they would have to go through than just allowing them to go through the rezoning process. So for that reason, I'd be inclined to go with the special use.
I agree with you there. You may have misinterpreted what I said. I
Okay.
believe the special use is certainly better than by right.
Okay.
I just don't like it either than by right.
He likes it slightly more than he hates the other one.
But my understanding is right now, they could go in and ask to rezone, correct? Is that right?
They could request to rezone and amend the TCAP to downzone basically to a lower intensity subdistrict, and that could include the MXDR, the MDR, the LDR. So there are other districts, but it would, it would make a hole in the fabric of the.
Either way, it would be hard for
high-density
them
area.
then.
Yes.
It's either hard as special use, or it's hard if they go through this, what P&Z's recommend,
would be
just kind of
challenges with
stay
that
the
as
same
well.
way. Okay.
Other comments?
This is the first time I'll just say ditto. I think everybody covered all the bases. The only thing I would add is that I have also been in areas like California and some of the, like Palo Alto, some of the areas where they have these contributing structures that have been done very nicely. And I think there's so much passion around downtown and the commitment to historic preservation, especially by these particular applicants, but also in general, the whole downtown district, that I feel very comfortable with supporting it, and then seeing what's brought before us. Not making the final decision, but I like allowing the question.
I think it's really important to note that if we approve this process, this is not a guarantee to any applicant that we're definitely
Correct.
approving his or her
Good clarification.
proposal.
That's right, they still have to come before
Yeah, this
council.
is not a sure thing in any way. This is actually us just saying, we'd cautiously consider it.
Smith?
I think the recommendations of staff are right on. I think we can sometimes overmanage. You know, I know you like the special use, but I've had similar situations where, you know, those contributing structures are there. And I think our hurdles are high enough, even with the rezoning and with all the other overlays and all the other things that we look at downtown. You know, I have real strong feelings on it, but in my mind, we've got enough checks and balances, and I think this, the whole natural process of how we're trying to grow downtown, this just helps it, and at the same time, gives us enough protection. So.
I did have one question for clarification. For them to be able to come through the special use process, they would need to obtain a certificate of appropriateness from Wake County Historic Preservation Commission, is that correct?
If it's a landmark.
If it's a landmark.
Yeah,
If
there's a
they,
specific process that goes, that would go through, that's related to the process that they went through for getting the landmark designation to start with.
if they could not get a certificate of appropriateness, are they prohibited then from coming to us for a special use request?
Well, as written, as the request is written, if they did not have the certificate of appropriateness, then you would not be able to, they would not be able to satisfy the conditions that the ordinance would state that would need to be met for the special use. So no, it could not be approved.
So it's the belt and suspenders approach. You got to get through both of those hurdles.
Mr. Yerha?
It's a high bar.
That prompts another question. Thank you, Don. In the staff report, it mentioned SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. It seemed like I recalled that they would be involved as an advisory group with any of these requests. I know the Wake County Historic Preservation, well, that's only for landmark status. I understand that. But SHPO was mentioned in the staff report?
Don't know if, is there, Anna's not here. She had, Ms. Redling had worked with that, but I know that there are, where there are specific requirements related to the landmark designation, those would need to be addressed through the appropriate entity. I think there would probably be a SHPO recommendation from that.
I'm looking at the staff report.
I'm trying to pull it up. You have it
It
there?
says the State Historic Preservation Office would evaluate the impact on the historic district in response to any specific development request, is basically what it says.
To evaluate, they would offer some type of opinion.
Staff has forwarded the proposed amendment to SHPO for review and comments and hopes to have additional information on the impact to property owners in the event of additional development on or subdivision of properties within the district. So it sounds like
Is
you.
that a hurdle they would have to cross before they come for a special use, the way that
It's not
reads?
clear that that's a hurdle, it's just, it just
Additional
sounds like it's
information may be
right, a
offered.
different.
That would be information, as part of the special use process for you to evaluate, we would provide whatever, we would seek information and input from them to give to you in making that decision.
So that would be a standard process in
Yes.
evaluating these things?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a good thing, too, if that's the case. The only other comment, just to clarify the terms, and it's simply for accuracy's sake, contributing, non-contributing. In a historic district, a contributing property is the historic property, right? The new building, like a guest house or something in back of a historic property, that's a non-contributing structure in a historic district, just to clarify the terms we were.
Thank you, Mr. Yerha. I'll be happy to make a motion whenever you're ready. I move approval of Land Development Ordinance Amendments Round 27A.
Second.
There's a motion and there's a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. We now move to item 27B. Ms. Bierman.
Okay, this item relates to density limits for life care facilities. Under the existing provisions, life care facility units, and these can include independent living units, assisted living units, and nursing home units, are all counted the same as a detached dwelling when calculating density. Under the proposed amendment, in the non-residential zoning districts, buildings with 3 or more units would be, or the units within buildings with 3 or more units would be counted as an equivalency of a half dwelling unit for the purpose of calculating the density. So in a life care facility, for example, if you had the cottage type area that would be single individual units or a duplex unit, those would count as 1 dwelling unit each for the purpose of density. But all of the other units in larger buildings, nursing home, assisted living units would be treated as 1 half unit. This is a table that shows where life care facilities are currently allowed, and the change that's proposed is highlighted in yellow in the office and institutional and office research and development districts, where those are allowed at 12 units per acre. In those particular non-residential districts, then we would be looking at allowing higher densities by reassessing how those units are calculated. And this is consistent with how it's done in other jurisdictions as well, recognizing the differences in the types of units. So I'll be,
Okay.
and this was one of the items in the Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation. They made one vote for all of the items. That was a 7-to-1 approval of all of these items. And the item that we previously discussed was the only one that there was really any discussion about that would indicate a dissenting opinion.
Okay, very good. Council members, questions, comments?
Yeah, I didn't ask for this to be moved out separately because I want to vote against it, like item A. But just to make a comment, I'm going to vote for it because I believe we do need to be a little as flexible as we can within the limits that we established to allow more life care facilities. I think it's something we're in dire need of here in Cary, and I wouldn't want to go on record as voting against that. So I'm for that. But the comments, and I spoke with Mr. Barker earlier today, this ordinance amendment is really in response to a specific request by one specific applicant, which is fine, and I applaud our staff for going out of their way to handle these individual requests and doing what they can. But in handling this particular request for Glen Air, which may work very well for them, I was just curious as to unintended consequences again. Are there other life care facilities in Cary that we're allowing double density to? How many might there be? Is it a big issue? Is there 1 or 2? Have you been able to look into that at all?
Yes, there are 5 or 6 existing facilities throughout town. Most of those are currently developed. As with any project, there could be some ability, for some redevelopment or possibly some minor expansion as is occurring, in the one where that initiated this request. So those possibilities exist, but in terms of the number, it's limited to 5 to 6.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That would be helpful if that type of information were in a staff report when we are trying to answer a specific request, instead of having the staff report said in response to a request from so-and-so. Would be nice to have more data.
Mm-hmm.
And a companion question with that is, it's a good thing we're not doing this in residential districts. It's only non-residential districts. I think that's a great point. But what about if it directly borders a residential district, was my other question. I know we have buffer requirements.
We do have buffer requirements that are based on the use, regardless of the district or the density, that are based on the particular uses that abut each other. Also, in some cases, related to building height, if there's a, unusually tall building, then additional building setbacks are required from residential districts, based on building height. So there could be scenarios where the setbacks would be greater if it was a taller building. But those are all issues that are addressed in the ordinance with provisions that we have set up to protect competing uses.
So even if we doubled the density as we're doing here in some of these cases, you think the existing...
The others, even if the density were doubled, the potential on any given site for a building of the same size to be adjacent to the residential area would essentially be the same. It would be more, you could have a building of this, of the same height still adjacent to that residential area now. It's just a matter of how many buildings on the property, basically.
Thank you for looking into that. It's just some things questions that arise when you look at the staff report, you think about and this was all last minute today when I spoke with Mr. Barker. I appreciate those answers. So, I mean, I don't want anything to hold up this, but I think we need to be careful when we are looking at requests that come in for one site that make a great deal of sense. It may not always make sense.
Well, I agree with that, is to say in the impact this would have in other parts of town would be, or there are 20 other properties for which this could apply. I think that's a really good point, Mr. Urha.
One question that I thought of as you were mentioning the term density was, we're using the density from this perspective because of the stormwater, which was given the example of how that calculation came about. Is that same density number used for parking spaces?
For life care, the parking ratio would be the same. Parking is based on the number of residents and the number of employees. There's one parking place for every 4 residents that's required, and one parking place for every employee.
Okay, so
that
density
calculation, if they doubled the density, they would double the parking, in essence.
So are there any other now this is a kind of a big picture item, but it goes back to the question that Mr. Urha was asking. Are there other items or LDO items that use that same density number that might be impacted? And stormwater was the example given here.
I mean, most all the other items in the parking would certainly be, well, the parking ratio would be the same. I don't know that there would really be anything, all of the design standards and site plan standards, subdivision standards that we look at would apply independent of the density.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Motion?
Move approval of Land Development Ordinance Amendment Round 27B.
There's a motion
A second?
and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'll do your other motion if you want me to.
Please.
Move approval of the Comprehensive Plan Consistency Statement for Land Development Ordinance Amendments Round 27.
A second?
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor? Discussion?
Because
Would you like-
of A, I'll probably be voting no for this
Okay.
also.
Other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Mr. Urha's dissenting vote. Closed session. Entertain a motion to go into closed session. Yes. You should have a motion.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do it, but I'll do it.
It wasn't sitting here.
Go ahead, Lori.
Pursuant to GS 143-318-11A, 3, and 4, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town. Among other things, the council expects to receive advice concerning the following lawsuit: John K. Johnson versus the town of Cary, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the town, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the town in negotiations, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-318-10E.
There's a motion.
Second.
And the second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we are in closed session. We'll reconvene the council meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
That's one.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.